this episode of Pit Stop with Don and James. We are going to talk about the Imola Grand Prix and a great launch and overtake by Max Verstappen. Some disappointment for Aston Martin and Ferrari on an Imola roller coaster with virtual and full safety cars. All right, James, how you doing? It's kind of rainy here in Salt Lake City. What's going on out where you are?
We're having 100-degree weather and winds of 25 miles per hour. So it's a different one.
Yikes.
Oddly enough, it's pretty cool compared to last year. So hopefully we're in for a cool summer where it doesn't hit 120 plus.
Yeah, you guys are nuts, man, living out there. That's insane. I thought it was bad living in Austin where our summers were kind of the worst of the four seasons. Although we had a swimming pool the last couple years that I lived there, and that made a lot of difference. So, um, you guys might want to consider getting a pool if you don't already have one.
We got a community pool, so we're pretty well taken care of up here. Got barbecues and everything. It's really nice.
We had a community pool as well, but during the pandemic, when the interest rates went way down, and nobody could go to the pool, it was like, okay, we're putting in a pool. So we put one in and then promptly left from there.
Probably increased your property value though significantly.
It definitely did at the time. That was a thing that was kind of interesting during the pandemic. Swimming pools were kind of hit or miss as to whether they increased the value of a home, but after the pandemic or right on the heels of it, right when we moved, people wanted them because it was like, oh man, if this happens again, we can't be caught without a way to swim in the summer. So, but yeah, that's nuts, man. 100 degrees with 25-mile-an-hour winds. Hopefully not a very high fire danger.
Nothing out here so far. Anything that's burned, I think, is already burned. So I think we're gonna be okay. God forbid anything happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sounds like you guys have a little more unpleasant weather. We've got our weather right now is reminding me of Portland when I lived in Portland, Oregon. Kind of overcast, gray, gloomy, but it's not bad. I don't mind wearing a hoodie. I kind of like wearing like uh, light warm clothes. It's my favorite kind of apparel. So happy to throw a hoodie on and just kind of be comfortable. So all right,
Nice.
well.
Jealous.
Yeah, I mean, in 100-degree weather, I feel like it's shorts, t-shirt, flip-flops. That's the way to make it comfortable. In fact, it was interesting. I guess we went to the 2021. Your brother and your dad, not you,
Unfortunately.
made it out to Austin to come to the Formula One race there. It was my first go at a Formula One race in person, and it was pretty warm. It was not at Austin's hottest, but it's just humid in Austin, and it was probably in the 90s, and 90s and humid makes for a pretty rough time sitting out for a whole day out in the sun. So your dad wore jeans and like a long sleeve shirt to keep the sun off of him, and I was like, dude, you might be from Southern California, but it can't be this hot there. And he really impressed me that he made it through there and was still in reasonably good spirits the whole time. I was so you have to kind of hike in. I would bring my flip-flops in a bag, and once we got there, I was in my shorts and my flip-flops and just trying to stay as comfortable as possible. So anyway, yeah,
That's a great way to
find
do
ways.
it.
You gotta find ways to beat that heat. The flip-flops is a big deal. I think if you can keep your feet reasonably cool, somehow that helps a lot. Uh, well, we're on the heels of literally just finished watching the uh, Imola Grand Prix. So we'll have quite a bit to talk about with that. We've got IndyCar, the Indy 500 qualifying happening today, and the race next week with Monaco next week. Monaco, of course, being such a legendary race for Formula One, and then the Indy 500 is the crown jewel of IndyCar, right? So things on the horizon. to talk about. And anyway, but we I definitely think we'll spend most of the time talking about the race that just happened. It was um, I, uh, I thought there was some initial action. It kind of got slow for a while, and then there was some incidents and things that really threw some curveballs that made the Imola Grand Prix pretty interesting. What was your overall take, James?
Yeah, so I think in order to really understand just how much of a shakeup we had during the Grand Prix, I think we need to go back to qualifying first. So Yuki Tsunoda, of course, crashing with I don't even think they made it 5 minutes into qualifying. It happened pretty stinking quick. I think it was his first flying lap, if I'm not mistaken. He crashed, um, not Tamburello, but the corners right after that, so 4 and 5, and he had a pretty big shunt actually. He hit the wall pretty hard, got airborne, flipped over on the wall a handful of times. The wall, of course, is doing its thing, keeping the car on the track. But he started from the pits this morning, which is not where you want to be if you are in a Red Bull. So you and I were kind of going back and forth. Lawson got booted after 2 races, and now this is Sonoda's fifth race, right? This is the seventh race, so yeah, fifth race. Um, I don't know. We'll get to it later, but he had a pretty decent performance. So I don't know if Red Bull's ready
Yeah.
to boot him just yet.
Yeah.
But I also have to mention both Williams qualified in the top 10, both Astons qualified in the top 10. Like, what a massive showing from Aston Martin. I really thought it was going to be this weekend. Um, and then there was one other one from qualifying, if I'm not mistaken. Who am I missing? Someone else had a shunt in qualifying. It
Colapinto.
was Colapinto, that's right. Colapinto crashed in Q1, but he still managed a fast enough time to qualify 15th.
Yeah.
So he
Well,
had a good run, I guess.
no, yeah, you're right. That was Colapinto and barely got the P15 there, right? So, yeah, big crash. That Yuki crash was pretty spooky, and luckily he walked away. Didn't seem to have uh, any effects. And I was really pumped for Aston, looking strong, but then the shakeups in the race got the best of them.
I should note that because both Astons and both Williams were in there, which means we had to displace a couple drivers. And those drivers would be both Ferrari drivers, man, starting 11th and 12th.
And Hajar ended up P9, which is a good qualifying for Isaac. Gasly was P10, so qualifying in the points positions. Of course, it was Oscar Piastri ended up on pole in qualifying, and Max was less than a tenth behind him, right? So 0.34, I want to say, behind. No, 0.034 behind Oscar for P2, Russell P3. So yeah, kind of an interesting, three different teams on the top three spots. Lando was then P4, which is not a great result for qualifying for Lando.
Uh, no, not a good qualifying for him. Um, Russell, just again, man, sneaking in. This time, I think it was really noticeable, scoring a P3 in qualifying. Uh, what a massive effort from him. Um, Even Antonelli didn't make it into Q3. Like, he started 13th. So,
Yeah,
a bit of a shakeup just going into the race, right?
right.
And you mentioned Hadjar. I do have to point out Hadjar. My bold prediction last week was Hadjar would be back in the points,
Yeah,
and he did finish P9 after the race.
yeah.
So,
A
um,
good
pretty
result
stoked I
for
got
him.
that one. Yeah.
My bold predictions were a complete bust. The Haas team, right? I had
Right.
predicted that they would both be in the points, and they were nowhere near it. Man, they just did not come to play.
With one DNF.
Yeah, and Ocon's car failed. Of course, my other bold prediction about McLaren not having to retire, or McLaren having to retire a car. Uh, they were strong. They um, the race start. kinda got him, but they had a fast enough car that the shakeups didn't ruin their day. The final result was Norris P2, Piastri P3, huge haul of points for McLaren. So while they lost the win of the race, um, with Piastri dropping from first to third, and really from first to second was when the race was lost for them. Max got him in, what was it, turn one or turn two on the first lap, and
Yeah, man, Max just had such a dominant car this weekend. It was a little unbelievable and a little unreal to see Verstappen doing that well, especially comparing the past few races. He just seemed to be back to his old form. The car seems to be like how it was last year, just absolutely dominant. I mean, uh, even at the end of the race, he only ran 9 green laps at the end of the race, and he still finished 6 seconds up on Norris. So that's a tough one.
I think Max's racecraft today was on full display. Right, this so the race started. Max was starting from P2. He didn't necessarily get an amazing launch. Oscar had a pretty decent launch, but Max made a sick move. And I mean, I don't know what he did, how he eyeballed that turn, but he rocketed past him on the outside, I think it was, to take the P1. And I mean, he just shot out ahead of him. I mean, it was a very aggressive and just sick move that he put on him to take P1. And then when that Red Bull is running in clean air, I mean, it's like he's just like, if I can just swipe P1 in those first couple turns, I can run in clean air and then I manage my tires. And so that seems to be the key, and he's very good at it. He's good at those aggressive moves. Um, and part of it, I think, was because was Piastri having to defend from George? It seemed like maybe
Um,
coming into the first turn, because George got a
a
pretty good
little
launch.
bit, yeah. George had a great start, of course, but he's already in the top three in the mix. He's also trying to defend at the very beginning, right? Because we said so. Piastri started first, Verstappen was second, Russell third, Norris fourth, right? So he's already looking in his rearview mirrors because not only does he have Norris, Fernando Alonso's right there as well, right? So he's got some big names behind him. Um, but he's also got to look ahead, right? Trying to see like who's coming. And Verstappen, man, you're right. He made that move, and once he made that move, he was gone.
Yeah,
You mentioned last week, this is a very fast track. It's a lot of straights. There's only one DRS zone, which is down the front straight. Um, and because it's so fast, and because there's like so much elevation change, you're right. That clean air really does make a difference, and he was out of there.
yeah, yeah. You Oscar's usually pretty good defending and getting his elbows out, so to speak. And he just didn't have it. Whatever the move was, and I haven't gone back and rewatched it. But yeah, the I recommend watching that. That was a very good racing display there from Max to steal that position, because he judged it perfect and got a great exit out of that turn, which you could just see the gap build right out of that exit. Um, so yeah, very interesting. But then, so I don't know what you thought, but I felt like after the first lap, and really probably halfway through the lap, when the order started to shape up, it kind of settled into not a particularly interesting race for quite a few laps. And uh, with the exception of so what it looked like had happened was, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but like most of the top 10 teams, or top 10 cars, were on a medium, while the 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 cars behind were, no, I think I might be saying this wrong. Most people start on the hard or on the medium, at the front?
Are you talking about just within the top 10?
Yeah, because I felt like the guys at the back kind of took it, or at the bottom 10 were taking a different strategy, and I feel like maybe they were on the mediums. Anyway, now I'm
I'll tell you right now. So everybody within the top 10, top 11 was on a medium.
was on a medium.
Hamilton was
Okay.
the highest driver to start on a hard. Same thing with Antonelli, Hulkenberg, Garmin, and Sonoda, who started from the pits. Everybody else was on a medium.
Okay. All right. So then what happened was Ferrari actually took a gamble and it worked out great, right? Like Leclerc pitted early for an undercut. I'm trying to remember
He
if I
pit
got
on
this right.
lap 9.
And it worked out perfect. Like he was net he had net gained several positions on that undercut chance. And then so it was looking like that might have been the most intriguing thing that had happened was an undercut, which I don't know what you think about this, but in things like that, it's not the same to me as watching, wheel to wheel racing on the track. It is interesting in the strategy call, but you're doing a lot of mental math there, like watching this and just trying to go, okay, where is he gonna shake out if people pit right now? And anyway, so then um, uh, basically what happened is when I think who was it that pit? Was it Oscar that pit right before the first retirement? And let's see, I got a note here, so I want to try to get this right. Um,
Piastri pit, and he had a long pit stop of 3.6 seconds, unusually long
yes,
for him, right?
and then
Or Leclerc pit on lap 9, uh, end of lap. Wait, he was P9. He pit at the end of lap 10. He went from medium to hards, looking to make the change.
right,
Alonso then pit. Sainz had also pit, but his undercut attempt did not work. Leclerc's undercut attempt worked because he emerged ahead of Russell.
ahead of Russell, right, and Russell and Sainz then pit on lap 12, so a few laps after Leclerc, right?
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so then Oscar pits at lap 14. It was a little bit of a slow stop, like you mentioned, 3.6 seconds to swap his tires. And then on lap 29, so that was quite a while later. It was actually, I think, at lap 28, Lando pits. And then at lap 29 is when Ocon has an engine failure. His car fails, which brings out the virtual safety car.
Yes.
So that kind of hoses Lando a little bit, right? Because he missed out on a cheap pit stop by a lap. It gives cheap pit stop for Max, and then this virtual safety car completely rearranges the top 10. Leclerc's undercut now fails, right? So like, and this is where it got really interesting to me. My brain was spinning because I'm like, okay, how did this screw up Leclerc so bad? So here's Leclerc, he's sitting here, and there was, I don't remember, I think it was about 10 cars ahead of him who had not pitted. He had pitted, and by doing the math, you could see that when those guys pitted, it was like everybody up to like P3 was gonna go behind Leclerc, come out, behind him. But then by giving the virtual safety car where you get basically 10 free seconds, those same cars now, when they came out of their pit, are going to be ahead of Leclerc. So it really was a very clear demonstration of how the undercut should work. And you could see it like you're watching it in the times and doing the math to like say, okay, when these guys pit, Leclerc's going to be net position of here. And then with the virtual safety car, that completely changes the dynamic. And you heard Leclerc come on the radio, and he was just like, "I'm the unluckiest driver in the world," which is a bold statement. Right? He's not that unlucky, but he did seem unlucky with that.
Alonso
So
said something similar too. He was like, "Man, I can't believe it. Like, I'm so dang unlucky.
yeah.
Like, this just isn't fair." Which he is right. So I want to go back just a little bit. So I
Okay.
went back and re-looked really quick at the start. So Russell had a mega start. There's a brief frame or two, so maybe just like a second or two, where he's actually in second behind Piastri going into the Tamburello chicane. Oscar sees that and moves over to try and block Russell, and that's what opens the door for Verstappen to get by. And Verstappen just breaks late because he spots that little gap, and that's where he makes it in turns. I know we talked about it last week, but it's 2 and 3 on the track map. So, but the first real chicane
Right.
that they come to, and that's where everything. That's where Piastri falls back. That's where Max goes ahead, and Russell sits in third, and of course Norris in fourth. And I think everybody else was pretty much the same going back after the first lap. Um, but then, as you mentioned, when the VSC comes out, so I made a note of it because you said it came out on lap 29. So, looking right before the virtual safety car came out, we had Verstappen, Norris, Albon in P3, who, by the way, is already like almost 30 seconds back at this point from Verstappen, which is crazy. Um, but then you had, let's see, Piastri, Hadjar, Antonelli, Hamilton, Leclerc, Hulkenberg, and Behrman. So that's the top 10 right there, right? But then, as you said, did I mention Leclerc? Where was Leclerc? Leclerc was running, he pit under the virtual safety car. So he was P8 coming into the virtual safety car. And then by the time everybody pit, Leclerc was P9, Alonso was 8, Stroll was still 10th. But this is who really got screwed. Sainz and Russell. They're the ones that really suffered the most under that virtual safety car because once it went back to green, Russell was sitting in 12th and Sainz was sitting down in 13th with Yuki Tsunoda in 14th, breathing down his neck, right? So those are the two that really got screwed. But the ones that it really benefited were Albon and Hadjar and Antonelli, and of course, both Ferraris were back in the top 10. Even like as the race went on, there was a few couple times because like the race is so speed driven, right? There's not really a lot of great opportunities. The only real opportunity in these cars is down in Tamburello, that first chicane that you come to. Like all these guys would get the DRS going down the front straight. And by the time you're out of that chicane, going into the next chicane before you run up the hill, like you're in dirty air and you just cannot get back to it. Like there's really no way to get around on this track except down there. If you don't make it, you're just stuck behind for another lap. And we saw that with a handful of drivers, right? We saw it with Albon trying to get around. And then we saw it with the Ferraris later on in the race, right? Like it just could not be done. And Albon, he was stuck behind, was it Piastri for the longest time, and he just could not get by him to save his life. Uh, or no, it was Leclerc. I forget who he was behind. I'm gonna misspeak right now. It's gonna drive me nuts because yeah, he was behind Leclerc for the longest time, right? And he couldn't get by him, and he ended up having a little shimmy going off into the gravel, and Hamilton flew right by him. Like he must have tried for like 5 or 6 laps, and it was just couldn't do it.
We need to kind of talk about this. So, the Williams, both Williams at different points in the order were battling both Ferraris, and it was a Williams v Ferrari. Which, I mean, James, you should be pumped about this. I mean, the fact that we're saying Williams is battling Ferrari, like, and it was they were good battles, and then
Did
I
you see
feel.
the post qualifying of Signs where he gets asked the question? He's like, "Oh, like, how do you feel like that you qualified against your whole team?" And his whole face like lit up, like he was so happy
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. I mean, I did not see that, but that I could imagine and yes, that is a huge deal for Williams. I mean, they look very good. I mean, Albon is a savvy racer. So is Signs, and then the car seems to be doing well. So it's very cool to see Williams doing this well. So yeah, uh, in this battle, right? So the virtual safety car happened at lap 29, and then there was a another um, uh, mechanical failure. This time for Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes. But that brings
Lap
out
46,
yes,
right?
46, and they brought out a full safety car to get his car off the track. And so this kind of gives another shakeup. Um, and
I had a thought about that too because um, where Ocon and Antonelli stopped on track, it was very similar. They were on that same sort of straight running up right after the hairpin running up to the long left hander.
mhm.
But one was a virtual and one was a safety car. I really don't know how I feel about that doing, especially because they were in the same spot, right? Like within like 15 feet or so or something like that. Like
Hmm.
I'm don't know if a VSC. Uh, I think the VSC was probably the right way to go, right? Because they already showed that they could do it once. Why not do it again? I don't know that a safety car was the right move to bring everybody back. I mean, just on the regulations, I think they should have just done the VSC. But for the racing, I think the safety car is the way to go.
Like, do you think they should have done the safety car for the first one for Ocon as well?
I just want to see consistency, right?
Yeah.
I mean, technically there is a car like right off the track, you know. It's it's not like he had a real spot to pull off right there. The track itself is narrow, and then the outskirts of the track are just as narrow. So, I mean, it's not really in any danger being where it was, right? Because it's on a straight. You know, cars aren't usually going off on straights, but I just want consistency,
Did
right? And I
anyone
think,
did
oh, I'm
anyone
sorry.
offer an explanation about why they handled it differently the second time?
I tried looking at the feed and I didn't see anything that would indicate as to why. I think the announcers were just as perplexed. I'm sure there might be some explanation given later on today or sometime during this week as to why.
Mhm.
Um, uh, it just goes to highlight like how the FIA is just not doing that great of a job. I think
Yeah.
because there just needs to be consistency, right? Like if you're going to do a VSC for one, do a VSC for another one.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me, and I remember that was kind of my first thought. I was like, it didn't look like he hit anything. His car just failed, and they pulled off to the side. Uh, I I didn't pay enough attention to where both of them were to make a judgment call in the moment. But I thought, okay, well, is Antonelli further away from where they can get get the tow out of the tow vehicle out of the out from behind the marshal area and onto the track? Is it going to take longer? I wasn't sure what the logic was. Nothing seemed, there wasn't anything damaged. There wasn't like a barrier hit or debris on the track that needed to be swept up or anything. So I didn't. I wasn't sure why they handled it differently, those two incidents. But
Yeah, the only reasoning I can think of is like maybe they did a VSC at the beginning, not really realizing that the tractor to remove the car has to come from up around the hill and travel down the track. So maybe they realized the VSC wasn't the safest option, was a bit of a mistake, and they moved to a safety car. But if they're unaware of the safety of the track at the beginning, I think that's just falling on the stewards of not understanding, like fully grasping their job and what they need to be doing. So they need to step up on that.
right. Yeah, yeah, it would have been nice to have some consistency. The full safety car takes longer. The restart is different. Um,
They also
the
had Behrman unlap himself under the safety car, which I
right,
thought was really nice, and waited for him to get all the way around the track. So that was good.
yep. Behrman was between first and second, a lapped car between Max and at
The
that
only
point
lapped car,
was at that point was Piastri running P2 or was it Lando? I can't remember.
I think it was Lando coming out of the safety car. No, it was Piastri. Piastri was running second.
And so Behrman was in sandwiched between them as a lapped car, and then yeah, part of the protocol for a full safety car is to allow the lapped cars to unlap themselves. So Behrman, unlaps himself, and it's like, a whole lap almost from Max all the way back around to whoever at that point was in P18 or P17. Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, that takes time for that to happen, and then Max judged the restarts very well. But yeah, we gotta circle back to Leclerc because that was a controversial thing, right? So uh, the move uh, that Albon puts on Leclerc, right? And I think going down into the chicane there, right? And the rule, and they explain this on the broadcast. If the lead driver's front wheel clears the mirrors, I think, of the car being passed, they have the right to the turn. And it was I'm not sure that they ever adjudicated whether his front wheel was clear of the mirror, but basically what happens is Albon is passing Leclerc, clearly gets a lead on him of some kind. Leclerc defends. It pushes Albon into the gravel, like you mentioned, which slows him down. And in the process, Hamilton, who was breathing down their necks, shoots ahead of them both. And well, he shoots ahead, and ultimately Leclerc is asked by his team to give the place back to Albon, right? So he gives the
Right.
place back to Albon, which is great for Albon, except that he lost a place to to Lewis
It
in the process. So it was kind of like
was a
um,
net zero for him.
right, kind of a grift by Ferrari, right? Hey, we'll have Lewis go shoot past both of them, and then he doesn't have to give any places back. So, what did you think about that? I wasn't sure what you would think about that because given that Albon was done a little dirty there.
Albon had been following him, trying to get around him, and he just could not make the move stick for close to 7 laps. And then I went back and tried to watch it, and it is so stinking close how it happens because normally you go on the outside to get the inside for the second part of the chicane, and um, which is what Albon had been doing, and it's what he did. And Leclerc just shut him out. Was he far enough along his side? It's really hard to say just from the angles that were shown. Um, it's going to be a tough one, but you're right. Leclerc did end up conceding the space to Albon because in that's more of a strategy part, right? Because had he been at fault, he would have probably gotten a 5-second penalty, and that would have jumped him down even more positions. So it was probably the right call to do. We might see a ruling a little later on about that.
Well, so I thought that I saw that the stewards that a banner came up on the broadcast that said that the stewards noted no further investigation. And what I didn't understand about that is that because he had already given the place back, um, and if that was the case, then yeah, it definitely was the right call, to. But if they ended up saying nah, it was clean, and then he gave a spot back for nothing, I'll be curious to see if how they assess that at the end, and
Yeah,
because
there's like a brief moment where they're wheel to wheel going through the chicane. So Leclerc might have been in the wrong, but it's just good racing, right? Like
yeah.
obviously Albon came off worse. Hamilton got the +2 out of it, so he's super happy, especially qualifying outside the top 10, and they're in front of a home crowd.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, in the end, great storyline for Ferrari and the Tifosi there. The whole stands is a sea of red, and then you see some crazy person wearing a orange McLaren shirt or something, or a
yeah,
Mercedes, and I just wonder about those people. Those guys got some
they're few and far between, really.
yeah. And so it was looking bad. Qualifying went poorly for Ferrari. Then they get into the race. They pull a nice undercut. It gets negated by a virtual safety car. Then the full safety car ends up helping them again, so that they end up finishing 4th for Hamilton and 6th for Leclerc. Great result given where they qualified and, they were, they were making a run for a podium for Hamilton. I mean, I felt great for Hamilton to get a P4. That's a good result for him. Things have been looking weird for him this year. People, I think, expecting him to come in and immediately get results, and they haven't really been there. Um, so yeah, P4 for Hamilton's great. P6 for Leclerc, not necessarily great for him historically, but given where they started and how things went during the race, that's not bad. A P5 for Albon, man, that's good.
It's his third P5 this season. Uh,
Very good for him.
yeah, man. Williams are just, I know they're kind of off and on just from race to race, but overall, they are having a fantastic season.
Yeah, compared to their previous several seasons, absolutely. And uh, I was really thinking Albon was going to have a P4, and for a
He was
while there,
pretty dang close, right?
they were even talking about him sniffing out a P3, getting a podium, which would be amazing for a Williams, So, and then Sainz did reasonably well too. He finished P8.
Yeah, he really got the shaft on the yellows,
Yeah,
right? They didn't help him at all, and he still managed to get a P8. So I'm really stoked by Sainz's drive. He had a fantastic run. But someone we haven't mentioned yet, Yuki Tsunoda, man, what a mega drive from Tsunoda.
yeah,
Started from the pits and finished P10.
yeah. Sneaks a point, which was good because he needed some kind of good news, and and I do think he was the beneficiary of the yellows, and was able to turn it into something, which is good. I was happy for Yuki because I was you and I were texting last night. It was all me. I was watching Drive to Survive. The episode was about all the drama around Red Bull's second seat, and of course, Checo driving to try to save his seat last year as the second driver for Red Bull, but then obviously Christian Horner has some sort of love affair with Daniel Ricciardo, and he was hoping that Daniel would do enough in the the Racing Bulls. Well, it was a V carb back then, to warrant promotion back up to Red Bull, and then Liam Lawson also in that mix and ultimately getting the seat, but that was controversial. And then Yuki Tsunoda. So there was really four guys racing for that second Red Bull seat last year. Um, and now, so I was kind of, as I was watching that episode, I was sort of going down the mental checklist. I'm like, okay, they wanted to part ways with Checo, and Checo's form was deteriorating. He just wasn't doing so hot. So he's out. Okay, so Checo lost his chance. Okay, they promoted Liam Lawson, ultimately got the seat, and it was really funny to go watch those old episodes and see Horner so bold about Liam and the prospects and everything. And then he comes in, does two races, you know, still I feel like he was done dirty. Uh, he's out after two races this year. It was like they immediately realized, oh, I've made a terrible mistake. So they let Liam go. Okay, so Liam's out. That's two of the four that were competing last year. So now we bring in Yuki. Yuki has really had spotty, he hasn't done a whole lot, um, but seemed okay in there. Seemed to be better than what Liam was producing. But I just felt like he hasn't done so well, and he's crashed a couple times in quali, and I'm like, I don't know if he's going to survive Helmut Marko. So if they got rid of him, that leaves
Yeah.
Daniel Ricciardo. Let's bring him back. Let's bring him back. Let's see if he can do any better than these other dudes. So I don't think it's going to
Yeah.
happen, but it was
Well,
fun
it's
to think
crazy
about.
because Yuki got a DNF in Saudi Arabia, right? But this is his second consecutive 10th place position, while reigning at P9. Um, but I think Hadjar might get the promotion, man. He has had, I mean, he did have the rough start, which we keep mentioning, but he's still floating around the top 10, being in a Racing Bull, right?
Yeah,
So he got P9 today. race in Miami, it was a P11, and then Saudi Arabia, it was a P10. Like he's still just floating right around it.
Yeah.
Uh, I think there's a good chance he will get the promotion coming up, especially if Yuki continues to under deliver.
Yeah, and how many races are we in now? 7, 8, 7?
We just officially finished race 7. Monaco's number 8 next week.
I think, it's looking more and more like the spin out in Australia for Hadjar was sort of the one anomaly. I think he seems like a legit solid racer, and yeah, I mean, he's kicking Lawson's butt. Lawson finished P14 today. I feel like, Lawson's just getting out competed by Hadjar pretty routinely. I haven't gone back to reassess. I don't know, maybe you know the stats better than me, but it seems like week to week, Hadjar is out dueling him.
Well, Lawson had a DNF in Miami. He finished P14 today. That's with 2 retirements of individual, one above him and one below him. Saudi Arabia was P12, Bahrain was P16. Like he's really floating around P15 is kind of like looking like his average. So uh, I'm not really sure what happened to Liam. He had so much promise last year, and it seems like he still just hasn't found his groove with either himself or the car or the team. But something still needs to change because Isaac is consistently putting him in the dust.
Yeah. I worry that they snake bit him by the demotion. Um, but I don't know what else to make of it. Like he drove solidly last year, and when he took over for Daniel, and so he's back in the same vehicle now. You would think he wouldn't have lost that much feel for the car when he was doing all of his preseason stuff with the Red Bull, and then only 2 races in the Red Bull. So I don't know. Yeah, the Liam Lawson story is starting to be a little tragic. I hope he can get it figured out um, and do something else. You know, he was when I was watching that episode of Drive to Survive. I've mentioned it to you before. Like I don't feel that Lawson is a particularly likable character. He seems very abrasive, brash, a little bit Verstappen like. Except uh, even Verstappen, to me, doesn't seem. He just seems like he races hard on Sunday, and then the rest of the time, I don't have any real gripe about him. But anyway, Lawson. I don't know if you remember this. There was an incident last year when he was getting held up a little bit by Checo after Lawson had um, come together with Checo. I'm trying to remember where it was. If it was like Mexico or Brazil or something, and anyway, then Checo was defending against Lawson, and Lawson eventually got around him. Checo in a wounded car, and he flipped him the bird as he went by. That's the kind of
I
stuff I'm
remember
talking
that.
about
That
with
was
Lawson.
Mexico. Yeah,
Uh,
getting flipped off at your home Grand Prix, not a not a
right,
great way
and
to go
by
out.
the guy in the junior team, and when you had already been he'd been damaged by him. His side pod, I think, had gotten damaged, and anyway,
Yeah, that
if
was a rough race.
if he had done that to Max Verstappen, but Max probably would have confronted him after the race and shoved him like he did Ocon years and years ago. But anyway, yeah. So that's the Liam Lawson story so far. Lawson
Yeah.
not putting together a great season. One other one in the race that I felt like was a bit of a bust. This was not a good weekend ultimately for Mercedes. Antonelli is basically hometown kid for Imola, right? And he didn't qualify particularly well. Where was he? P12-ish, 13,
For the starting grid, he was down at P13.
P13. and then of course has a DNF. His car failed. The mechanical failures were the ones today that got the folks that didn't finish. So not particularly great for him, but then also Russell, who looked like he was having a promising drive, ended up P7. So not great. He started from P3, made a good like we talked about earlier, run at even first, um, down to turn one or turn two. I guess we've been calling it turn one because it's really the first real place that you hit the brakes. But yeah, he had that promising shot, but then the wily move of Verstappen shot that down, and then the virtual safety car and the safety car really end up coming to bite George and send him down to P7. So not a great weekend for Mercedes. I'm sure Toto's a little bit a little bit chafed on that one.
Yeah, and it seems like everybody that you know stopped right before the yellows just really got the worst of it. So I think the worst ones would probably be, of course, Aston Martin. They never really fully recovered. Um, they started both in the top 10. Alonso ended up finishing 11th with Stroll all the way down in 15th. So really out of step to what the car had in terms of potential, but also Gasly, right? Because he started in the top 10 and he just couldn't make the recovery. Finished all the way down in P13th. The only two that really recovered were Russell and Sainz. Um, but Ferrari had a mega drive. So I mean, I with all the potential that we've seen from Gasly and from the Aston Martins, I'm really hoping they can carry it on over into going into Monaco. Um, because they had some good momentum today, right? Like they had a fantastic weekend with the exception of the race. But I think whatever they're doing in terms of car development, whatever they're doing, they're moving in the right direction. And so I'm really hoping, Monaco's a whole different beast, right? Compared to what Imola is, because Imola is all about speed and Monaco is a relatively slow track, right? With some really tight turns and no margin for error. So
Monaco is
it's
about keeping it between the lines, but really about qualifying, right? So if
it's
you
all about the qualifying.
and Imola is a tire management thing, right? Because at those speeds, if you're not on the right tire strategy, that's going to get you. But yeah, you're right. The Aston Martin weekend might have been the saddest. It's kind of it's kind of between Aston Martin and Mercedes for me. Mercedes, of course, has the higher potential because they've got a better car. They had a guy on P3 to start, um, but really, we're still waiting for Alonso to score points, and he definitely had that in his grasp and kind of um, got screwed by the safety cars. So yeah, that was a bummer. I was really thinking, okay, what we were gonna be talking about was Alonso finally scores his points this time, and it wouldn't have been bad points. He was in P5, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
Yeah,
P5 to
even
start the
even if he
race.
had just moved down a few just to get like a top 10 finish,
Yeah.
it would have been fantastic because Stroll is still kicking his butt in the standings.
Well, and that's the other thing is like I had thought all week long about how I've done Stroll wrong by saying how he's too slow and whatever. But then he's holding his own this year out of kind of nowhere, and then he was in P8 and looking decent in this race. I mean, even well into the race, they were doing well. But then it was the strategy and the safety cars, just like Alonso said, the bad luck. Got to be crushing when you have stuff like that happen in the race where you just I mean nobody can really predict when these things are going to happen and a car failure happens and the next thing you know you got a virtual safety car and if you just pitted you're just head in hands there because you just it's nothing. It's just pure bad luck.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, right? But even with Signs getting points today, it just still wasn't enough to bring him in the top 10 in the standing. He's still sitting P11 right now. Uh, Yuki Tsunoda's up to P12, but Lance Stroll still sitting in P10 with Ocon, of all people, still sitting in P9, tied at 14 points. Like it is really odd how the points are shaping up as a whole for the season. But of course, Piastri's still ahead of Norris. Max made some good points, made up a little bit of ground, but he's still sitting in third in the standings at the moment.
I will say one other thing too, about Lando. Great that Lando went from P4 to P2. That's very good for him, and that would be great on its own. But I felt like there was one other thing, and that was that Lando on fresher tires, granted fresher tires, made a good move, an aggressive move to overtake his teammate. So I liked that. Showed a little bit of fight from Lando to that he's still going for the drivers championship, and I think that this could shape up to be an interesting um, second half of the season. It's kind of crazy to think that we're starting to creep up on the midway point of the season, but the second half of the season, if it's tight between Lando and Piastri, who are they going to prioritize? Are they going to let them race? Is it going to be chippy? I think that is going to be very interesting to see.
Yeah, Zach, they right after he made the move, they put the camera right onto Zach Brown, and he was cool as a cucumber, like wasn't stressing out or anything. Of course, Zach Brown has always been, let him race. So, uh, yeah, if I guess it'll really depend, right? How close it comes down to. I think Zach Brown will let him continue to race unless Verstappen or Russell can really start making some headway into the points. Then they might start playing the team game, but since Piastri and Norris are so far ahead, I think he's just going to let them continue to race. And as long as they race clean, right? You don't want to lose two drivers. Uh, Hitting your teammate is the ultimate sin in F1. So you don't want to be that guy to do it.
And they did keep it very clean. I felt like Oscar has a good balance, I think, between getting his elbows out but staying tidy on the track. I like this about Oscar. Oscar is about the most level-headed guy out there, and yeah, I mean, I watched the post-race interview with him, and he's just level-headed, and he's like, "I just didn't have the grip, and so P3 it is," and so he just, he wasn't gonna jeopardize anything, I think, to try to hang on to P2, and he knew that Lando's tires were way fresher than his, and he defended as much as he could without jeopardizing the position. So yeah, very good. I liked it, and I love that Zach's uh, Zach's initial his default is let them race, and obviously I think they're gonna have to rein that in or play the team game if it comes to that. But yeah, let them race to the extent that they can get away with it. And I think that they won't hit each other. I don't think they're gonna crash into each other. Because I don't think it's in either driver's nature to do that. To be so aggressive that they're gonna jeopardize the team for position. So I think that what I really want to see is that a battle where Lando starts winning a few more races and pushing the gap closer between the two of them, so that what we have down the stretch is at least a driver battle between the two of them, even if they lock up the constructors championship fairly early in the season.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it'll be a close one just between those two. My money is still really on Piastri. As you said, he's level headed. So I think, well, not to say that Norris isn't, they're both pretty level headed. Um, but McLaren is still the team to beat. But I don't know, after today, Verstappen had a really good showing. And I think if Yuki can just sort it out, I think they might start to make a run towards the Constructors' Championship down the line. But I know we're sort of reaching our limit here, but I just want to talk about Franco's first outing. Uh, Not a particularly strong one. finished
No.
all the way down in P16. He got the uh, he got the team orders to let Gasly by at one point, and not exactly his best first outing for Alpine. Um, I mean, he did have a
He
shunt
Yeah.
in qualifying, so you know whatever they were able to do for the car, it's probably not the best that it could have been. Um, so it's sort of a makeshift car during the race, really. But he just, I don't know if it was his confidence this weekend. I'm really hoping he has a better run at Monaco. I should also note, like, these are all new tracks for him as an F1 driver, right? Because he only did part of last season.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm not I didn't do enough this week to feel like I got enough to judge him on. Didn't He didn't impress in any particular way. The crash in qualifying is bad for him, like he's got to come out and at least keep the car on the track, I think. The bar shouldn't be super high. I mean, he's got to outperform doing and crashing is going to be bad for that, so so keep the car on the track, and then if he's finishing P15 and above, right, like anywhere above P15, he's going to be outperforming Jack, I feel, so um it's not a high bar, I don't think. So yeah, we got to keep watching him. He's got a few more races, and Monaco is not, I don't think Monaco is going to be great for him. It means that he has to put together a very good qualifying lap on a very tight track, and uh, I mean, we've seen crazy stuff happen, so he could definitely do it. But I'm not gonna bank on Monaco being his breakout race. I think it'll come later.
Yeah, I'm just looking back here at Jack Doohan. So he went backwards kind of almost every single race. I really don't count Australia as being a good comparison because there were a lot of outliers in that race. In Australia, he had a DNF, but China, he was 13th. But then each race, it was 15th, then back up to 14th, but then down to 17th. And then in Miami, he had a DNF. So it's not been the best for Jack Doohan. He just continually moved back. So I think if Colapinto can just at least hold or move a little bit forward, I think he might keep the seat uh, going forward. But I mean, it was only his first race. I don't know that Monaco, like you said, will be particularly that good. I mean, if he qualifies well, he might have a decent finish since it is all about the qualifying. So who knows? We'll have to wait and see.
So did they bring him in for 5 races? Was that what I remember? Colapinto for
Yeah, Briatore said something along the lines of, "We'll let him race 5 races and then we'll reevaluate."
so
So,
so just for the record here, of course, we just had Imola, Monaco's next, then he'll have Spain, Canada, and Austria to show what he can do. Um, do any of those tracks look like one where you could you could see the Alpine and Colapinto doing well? For some reason, my eye goes to Canada. I don't know. It's a tough track, but
Canada can be a little bit on the difficult side, especially if it starts to rain, which is not unusual for Canada. Um, it might be a little bit on the cool side there, even though it is summer, technically. So we'll see. But Austria is a pretty quick track, um, a very short track at that. So it could favor. Um, but again, on those fast tracks, it's all about the clean air, right? So
yeah,
he's going to have to find a way to make some moves. Uh, I don't know. Gasly has had some great showing, so I mean, the car definitely has promise. So I guess we'll wait and see. I'm not going to make any bold predictions that far out.
yeah. Oh man, my bold predictions. They are. I'm gonna have to start thinking about these a little harder because my bold predictions. I feel like I'm like really swinging for the fences, but I'm batting about 100 right now.
I almost had 2 out of 3. I predicted Stroll in the top 10, and he qualified in the top 10, so I was halfway there.
Yeah, Yeah, they sometimes these guys give me hope and then they pull the rug out from under me. But uh, that was kind of how I was feeling. Uh, well, anyway, the what I was gonna go with this was Haas really punched me in the stomach on this one. I was like, oh man, they were like 11-12 last year in this race, and then uh, I thought they seemed better this year, and I thought they would do better, and then they just did not show up in quali, and then they had a car retire, and then Behrman came in. What was it? Uh, Almost at the back of the at the back of the pack. Oh, sorry, I had it up and then I lost it. Behrman was 17th, so only Bortoletto finished behind him this week. So anyway, I will say this too. I mentioned Bortoletto. Okay, Bortoletto, back of the pack. But Hulkenberg came in P12, which, although no points, that's pretty good for the Sauber. I still have high hopes for Hulkenberg that he can get a podium one of these days. Not maybe in the Sauber or not this year, but I would like to
Someday.
see it. It would be sweet, even if it was like a crazy situation, like it starts raining in Monaco and half the field up above him crashes out. I would love that for Hulk. Um, but anyway, we've really gone on here. I think we maybe need to wrap it up. Um, unless you had any last thoughts.
No, I'm really just looking forward to Monaco. Uh, I didn't really make any bold predictions going in, but I can make a couple here real quick. I'm not gonna put Stroll back in the top 10 at Monaco. I don't think he ever really does well at Monaco. Um, but uh I will put his teammate Fernando Alonso back in the top 10. I'll put him up there for Monaco. Uh, I think Alonso has won at Monaco a handful of times, so could be good for him. And I'm gonna put Max back at number one for for the finish of the race. He's won Monaco a handful of times, and I think he'll do it again.
Okay, well I'm gonna make two bold predictions for Monaco. I'm gonna say Leclerc pulls the win. He won it last year. The first time he's won, Monegasque drivers won it. Was it ever or in a long, long time? I can't remember now. But Leclerc, I'm going to say he repeats the win.
Oh, that's a
Um,
bold one.
yeah, very
That's a very
bold.
bold one.
And the other prediction that I'm going to have is that we're going to see Yuki in. I'm going to go ahead and say Yuki's going to have a good outing and be, let's say, top 6 for Yuki.
That's a very bold prediction for Monaco
Yeah.
and from the second Red Bull.
Oh yeah. I'm waiting to see. I you mentioned something earlier about Red Bull needing more points out of that second car, and I really agree with that. And I want to see that happen. As much as I don't really care, for Red Bull or Max, I want Yuki to do well, and I think that would be an awesome story if he can start contributing more and save his own skin at Red Bull. So that's what I'm looking for. Yuki P6, Charles wins it. I'm not going to put any other predictions on who's going to be on that podium, but I don't think you're too far off. I think Max is just showing that this dude can pull it out and is, you know, he's always a contender. And the McLarens obviously have the fastest car out there, so assuming nothing weird happens, um, you know, they're going to be in that mix somewhere up near the top. But let's see if Charles can put together a nice lap, and if he does and gets qualifies P1 or 2, or if there's a safety car or some other kind of weather or something, I'm 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 thinking something happens. Charles gets the chance to compete for a second in a row at his home Grand Prix.
Fair enough. I know it's not our usual thing, but did you want to make a bold prediction about the Indy 500
Oh boy,
next week about who's gonna take the win? I think they're doing second round of qualifying today. It might actually be underway at the very moment.
yeah,
Um,
I think it is. Well, I don't follow enough to make a bold prediction. I'll just tell you what my hope is. I'm looking for Alex Palou to win it. I think Joseph Newgarden's won it 2 years in a row. Is that true?
I don't know if it's 2 in a row, but he did win last year.
I feel like he repeated last year, but I know he's won it 2 times in the last few years, and so I'm hoping someone gets past him. Not that I have any particular beef with him, but I'd like to see Palou win it, or a McLaren just in general, as I'm a McLaren fan. So, but yeah,
You're
uh,
right, Joseph Newgarden did win it 2 years in a row. He won it 23 and 24.
it was a pretty impressive win last year. I feel like there was a battle. I felt like it was Palou and Newgarden battling it out, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I believe you're right, and he got it within, like, the last 2 laps, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's my hope. Palou gets the better of him because I hate to see a guy continue to get kicked. So, if it comes down to Palou and Newgarden, I'm hoping Palou finds it this time. But, three-peat, that's also an interesting story. Newgarden can do it.
I'm looking at it right now, so it looks like qualifying is going at the moment. They have the green flag on track with about 48 minutes to go. And as it sits, Scott Dixon is currently in first to take the top spot. So we'll see.
Nice.
If you
Well,
go to the if you go to the leaderboard, Dixon's starting fifth. So we'll see how it finishes up in the next hour, how it goes. But I like the old heads going in. So, I've been watching IndyCar my whole life. So I think Scott Dixon would be a really good one to come out on top, have him win, or maybe even Will Power or Takuma Sato. Him, of course, being a former F1 driver. I like all the older guys to win it, but I don't know. Newgarden and Palou are pretty dang quick and aggressive, so we'll see how it plays out. The thing with the Indy 500 is anything can happen, right? There's usually a yellow, usually more than one yellow, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
and you were saying before there's been some crashes already during practice and qualifying, right? So, uh, yeah, could get messy out there.
Yeah, Colton Herta, of course, had a big one. Then there's the Kyle Larson, the NASCAR driver who's in on it too, way back at the back. Can't believe that dude has the balls to say he's better than Max Verstappen. It's not. It's nowhere near true.
That's funny. That's brazen.
Nah, it's very brazen. He's not that good.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, man, we made our bold predictions. I think we're good to go, man. It's been a fun one. I really enjoyed the race. So
Yeah, it turned out to be one. I will say, as my kind of parting words on the race, this to me was an example of not necessarily exciting wheel to wheel racing, but more, that gave us something to look at from a different perspective, like the strategy, the tires, what happens if there's a safety car, undercut, overcut, those kinds of things were on display, which is a little hard for my brain to process early in the morning, but that is part of this sport, and it gave us stuff to talk about ultimately, which almost every week it does, even in races where there's not a lot of eventful stuff happening. It gave us something. Of course, then next week we look forward to kind of racing prestige. I don't know what the right word is. This is kind of the uh, the Easter Sunday, if you will, of motorsport. Monaco, the most fabled track, though the races are not usually that exciting in this era of racing, Formula One racing car. But Monaco is the kind of crown jewel of races for Formula One, and the Indy 500 is the crown jewel of IndyCar racing, all happening on the same weekend. So
part
uh,
of the racing triple crown,
that's right. So yeah, looking forward to that, and we'll have plenty to talk about next week.
maybe.
Yeah, we'll find something.
I'm hoping something happens, but other than
Yeah.
that, man, you want to give us your Your Bearman sign off.
Well, I was thinking about that, and we last week I was asking how do you say it in Italian, and I didn't even remember that arrivederci is how you say goodbye in Italian. So arrivederci and ciao.
Ciao, man.